Hey guys, it's Deborah, and I know for a lot of you, the hard part about EFT is not learning how to do EFT or to even be great as a tapping professional, but actually taking it out into the world to make a living at it. So I want to start this mentorship program with some real basic information, which is just starting to examine what kind of EFT business is right for you and the skills that you need to pull it off. I'm not going to be able to go into the skills that you need. We're going to do broad strokes here, overview stuff. And as we go through the mentorship program, we are going to get more and more in depth on the things that you need to know, developing the skills that you have, doing the tapping to help overcome the stress that you have around it and the blockages that you have around it, doing some demonstration videos, and also doing some live coaching, of course, so that we can help you with those complicated clients and help keep your skill set fresh. So to start off, we're just going to ask what kind of EFT business is right for you. Now, there's really two main ways to make a living with EFT, and one is in person and the second is online. Now, of course, there's some overlap with this. There's a lot of people who have online businesses who will also take in-person clients, and there are people who have in-person practice who take people online. And also, even if you have an in-person practice, there are many online skill sets that you will find very beneficial as you go through this. So we're going to discuss that. So first you got to start by asking yourself, what works for me in my life? If you're someone who does not have a lot of technology skills, you might be automatically attracted to seeing clients in person. And if you're someone who's looking to not have to bother with an office or who wants to travel, or is even looking to take your practice huge, then an online practice might make more sense for you. Now, like I said, the two skill sets are going to overlap. There are things that apply to both of them. We will discuss that today, but the two are also decidedly different, both in approach and in opportunities. So first I want to talk about live in-person clients. So basically, this breaks down into two camps. There are those people who really don't want to be entrepreneurs and they prefer to work for others. And then there are those who work for yourself. Now, the first one, working for others, really gets broken down into two camps as well. One is those people who are professionals, taking this into a professional atmosphere. I'm talking about your counselors, I'm talking about your social workers and so forth. And they already have a current employer. Now, for you guys, a lot of this talk may be irrelevant, but also a lot of you want to have a side practice. I know that. And also the thing here is you have a separate challenge from everyone else, and that is going into your workplace and finding a way to integrate into what you're already doing. And oftentimes that requires getting permission from your current employer. And often it's not even permission as much as it is an understanding, being able to educate your employer as to what is EFT, what are the benefits, what are the things they need to consider in terms of, do we have liability? Do we need insurance? How are people going to react? How is it going to affect the reputation of the practice? And so your challenge can be very difficult in terms of communicating the viability, the usability, the efficacy of EFT to your employer in such a way as they are willing to allow you to bring it into your practice. You also have the challenge oftentimes of getting permission from your clients, or from getting permission and understanding from from the people you're working with. So now, this is different. For example, let's say you're working in a school environment. If you're taking EFT into a school environment, then that's going to be very different than if you're taking it into a counseling environment. Because in a school environment, you might have to go so far as to get the permission from the students' parents in order to use it, not just the administrators, not just the principal of the school, for example. Now you might have to go all the way to the school board. So there's a lot of communication that has to take place here and a lot of hoops that you might have to jump through, unless, of course, you're one of the lucky people that your employer has paid for you to take this training and it's already been pre-approved. Now, one thing I do want to talk to you about here is that many times I see a lot of people who are professionals who are going in with their current employer who want to almost apologize for bringing EFT in or ask for permission to use it when it actually becomes counterproductive to do that. For example, I see a lot of counselors who are very hesitant to use it with their long-term clients without having had some sort of presentation on what is EFT and getting their kind of permission to use it. I find actually that this can be counterproductive and that you might have more success if you go into those sessions with a sort of directive that says, I'm the professional, you're here because I know what I'm doing, and we're going to do this thing today. Let's go ahead and do it. I wouldn't expect a counselor, for example, to explain to their patient that they are doing cognitive behavior therapy, for example, today. So I wouldn't expect you necessarily to declare that you're doing EFT tapping other than the first time around saying we're going to do this thing. And if you do that as a directive instead of as a can we, you might get a lot better results from your clients. So that is all I'm going to say on this topic of working with your current employer. So then you have people who are out there who are looking to find a job. Now, what I am going to say is that in my experience, this is not particularly successful for people who do not have what I consider mainstream licensing. If you go into a doctor's office, if you go into the Veterans Association, if you go into a hospital environment and you try to get a job there, you will find that oftentimes their liability issues are pretty significant and they are going to require mainstream licensing in order to bring you on. I don't want to discourage it. I just want to put that out there so people can have some understanding of what they might run into, because that seems to be pretty consistent. Now, what a lot of people do, however, is they go into non-traditional healing centers, and that would be healthcare clinics, metaphysical centers, spiritual centers, massage therapy clinics, chiropractic offices, and build a relationship with them that they might then be interested in bringing you on as someone to help out in their clinic. I see this happening quite consistently, and I also see it being very successful. I know I was working with a woman just yesterday who says she's been working with a naturopathic doctor as a receptionist or an assistant. And after a number of years there, she approached her employer and she said, I would like to ask you if it would be possible to bring in to change my role here to being an actual practitioner here. And the practitioner happened to be very open to the idea. She's gotten her training and now she is moving on to start taking clients within that practice. So that's a possibility. Now, another thing that often happens is not really a job as much as it is sort of a cooperative work and experience. So, for example, if you went into a chiropractor's office, for example, and you built a relationship with that chiropractor, and that chiropractor has a nice size client load and they have workspace in their clinic. What they might do, and I've seen this happen over and over and over again, many of our graduates have had this experience where that person will hire you as someone that they refer people to and give you a space to work in their clinic. So often this is very successful and can be really great because you don't have to find your own clients to a large degree. You don't have to pay for marketing. You don't have to spend time in the process of getting or nurturing clients. This person is handing them to you. Now, often what happens there is they're going to ask you for a significant percentage of your income. I have heard people take as much as 60% of your income for that. But considering you're not paying marketing expenses and you're not paying for office expenses, it might still end up being a great situation for you. So if you're looking to work for someone else and you really find the marketing aspect of this overwhelming, that is something that you might want to consider. But most of you are going to end up working for yourself. That's what I think I have found as I watch this. And that can be a little daunting, especially for those of you who are new at working for yourself. I would say that it's really nice if you have a transitional phase into this. So if you start taking clients on the side while you're still working, or if you have some kind of other source of income that can help give you sustenance while you're building your practice, those are a real hand up in terms of doing this. I don't generally recommend that if you've got, if you're a single mom with 3 kids at home and no source of income other than your job, that you quit your job to become a practitioner. I would say that it makes a whole lot more sense to build your practice up until the practice has is a going concern and can pay your bills before switching over to being a full-time practitioner. Now, each one of you has your own levels of risk and your own decision-making on this, but I have found that there can be a really nice transitional period if you're taking 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 clients a week and working your way up until that is enough income for you to give up your main job or your main source of income. That's just my recommendation. But, okay. So let's just say you're going to be working for yourself. There's a number of things that you need to do, and we're going to talk through this. One is you got to decide what kind of business you're going to set up. That can be easy or it can be overwhelming, but we'll discuss it. Next, you need a location to work, and that sort of requires a vision for your work too. They're all kind of intertwined. And then it helps to have some skills and mindset of an entrepreneur. We will talk to that. And the nice thing about working for yourself, especially if you're taking in-person clients, is that it can use a more traditional marketing skill set. And that can be less intimidating to people, particularly many older clients. There's many people who take the training who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And if I say to you, oh, you've got to set up your Facebook page, they get a blank look on their face. So this can be a really easier way for people who don't have a strong online skill set to still have a successful practice and do it in using more traditional sort of homegrown marketing methods. So setting up your business, again, we've had more than 45 countries people from more than 45 countries go through the program. So I can't speak to every country, and the regulations can vary by state as well. So I recommend that you talk to somebody who knows more about this than I do, as it's outside of my scope of guidance. But what I can say is that for a lot of you, you might just want to work as a sole proprietor. Basically, you set up, you take your clients, and then you work under your Social Security number and you pay that way at the end. For some of you, an LLC is going to make more sense. That's going to be particularly important if you're someone who has a fair amount of assets and you get worried about your liability. I don't find that EFT has a high liability load, but it always makes sense to protect yourself, particularly if you have a lot to protect. Or a corporation, for most of you, a corporation probably is not going to be the way to go, but you might find that it makes sense for you. Again, talk to somebody who knows those things better than I do. Now, next thing is going to be your location for working, because if you're seeing clients in person, you do need a space or an office. For many of you, you might want to work from home, but something to consider there, because working from home can be wonderful. You're not paying rent and you don't have travel time, and you can set up a really nice, comfortable place. Maybe it's even your meditation room or something like that. But there's also some issues with that, in that you are bringing people into your private space. So you need to consider whether that's something you want to do. Generally, it's not a problem because most clients are very respectful. But if you have someone who's got some pretty substantial issues, or someone who becomes highly dependent on you, it can be a problem to have them know where you live. So it is something to consider in your decision as to whether or not you want to work from a home office. The next option, this is what I did for many years, was just rent an office. And, you know, for those who are lucky enough to buy a building or something like that, you can rent an office. And that can be, you know, useful. The problem with that is most people renting an office can be very expensive, especially considering if you are going to see, let's just say your practice is successful at 10 to 12 clients a week. So if you are seeing 10 clients a week and you are charging even $100 per session, you're still at, you know, $1,000 a week. And for many people, that's enough income. But if you've got to pay $500 or $600 or $1,000 a month for an office, that can be really burdensome. So another option to do is to do a cooperative with other professionals. And I saw this happening in the first building where I rented, which was where there was a person who was doing Reiki, there was a person who was doing massage, and a couple of other types of practices. And they all rented one office, divided the hours, and divided the cost of the office. So that's something you could consider if you are you know, conscientious of price. The next option is to go to the home of your clients. Now, again, you have the safety issues to consider and the inconvenience of going to different locations. If you're going to do this, you're probably going to charge a premium price. But make sure that you have clients for where you feel safe, and that, you know, your safety is a part of the consideration. There's also some public locations that you can go for tapping, particularly group tapping. For example, you might want to go to your public library. If you are doing group tapping events, that can be a particularly great place to go. And you also might want to have, for example, your local metaphysical center have you come in to do group tapping, and then turn each one of those into private clients afterwards. So there can be public locations where you can go to do group tapping sessions and then turn them into clients. And finally, something that used to be very popular, it's not as popular now that there's a lot of online opportunities, is to travel to spread the word of EFT. And what that entails is really going from, you know, kind of holistic office to, or metaphysical center to the next holistic center, and getting people to set up live sessions for you. And so you go in and you teach, for example, you're going to do stress relief with EFT. And so you do a 2-hour presentation. You might make it a free presentation. You might make it $10, $20, $30. And then people come in and they learn how to do tapping from you, and then you turn them into clients, and you can do generally your sessions at that location while you're tapping. Now, the nice thing about that now in the digital age is that you can then take those clients and turn them into online clients later. So it's not like you go there, do a one-off, see them once or twice, and then you never see them again. Now you can turn them into long-term clients. And that can be a nice way of really getting your name out into the world and being able to travel and to do EFT at the same time. And the nice thing about that is that it uses the contacts of those locations to bring you clients. And also it becomes a form of publicity because those people are now holding you up as someone that they recommend to others. And that really can be a nice way of getting your name out there to get your work done. Okay, or to get clients. Okay. The next thing is helpful is really to have a mindset of an entrepreneur. For many of you, this is the trickiest part. First of all, you do have to be self-motivated. You got to wake up in the morning and you got to say, okay, today I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. And when you have bad days, you still have to push through it. Or, and it feels like it's not working, you have to keep looking under every rock for ways to make it work. And this can be the hardest part. And for many people, taking risks, being brave, putting yourself out there to let people know what you're doing, particularly in your home community where people might perceive you in one way and you now need them to perceive you in another way, that can be particularly challenging. But if you can just be willing to put yourself out there, go to different events, go to anywhere that they'll let you speak, anywhere that you can hand out a card and let people know what you're doing, talk to people. Those are kinds of skill sets that are going to help you to be successful. Because much of your time, like it or not, if you're self-employed in this field, is spent finding clients. And also as a self-employed practitioner, a lot of what you have to do too is figure out what deal with all the paperwork and the legalities, dealing with, the taxes, making sure that you are, have whatever permissions that you need. Those sorts of things become burdensome as well, but you have to be willing to dig through them. And also it can help if you have, like I said earlier, some sort of stability beneath you, and don't just leap in full-fledged, full body in if you don't have some way of taking care of yourself, because these things, I can't tell you that for sure. I'm just saying this is my perspective and advice on it, because these things can take some time to develop. You also have to have the patience to wait your way through that. Sorry about the truck in the background. Okay. Now, the nice thing about having a local clientele is that you can get away with traditional marketing skills. Now, the really nice thing about having a face-to-face practice is that it really is very, very personal. And you build a relationship with your clients that has a physicality to it that you never get from an online client. Like, I have a lot of online clients, people I have never met in person. So if they walked into the room, it would feel kind of shocking that they were actually here in presence. But when you have live clients that you work with one-on-one, that presence is wonderful. You can see their reactions in front of you. You see the changes to their face. You see the way they move their body, and you can feel the way their energy changes, which is a whole different game. So it's a wonderful experience, and I'm glad that I had that for 12 years. Honestly, if I had the choice between online clients and live clients as a general rule, live clients have an essence to them that is really, really wonderful, and I miss that. But for me, and in terms of the realistic aspects of it and the convenience of having an online clientele, nothing is going to take me away from that convenience at this point. But I do still really enjoy having an in-person client. The challenging part, of course, is the marketing aspect of it and getting them into your office. And that's the difference between those who get very successful and those don't. So whether you have an online business or a face-to-face business, you're really going to need a website. Now, it's not nearly as complicated or difficult as it used to be. There's a lot of tools out there. We will teach you this in the mentorship program as we go along, as that you can just make yourself a basic website from home without having to spend a lot of money on it. You can also just hire people for that. Again, we will give you some references as to ways you can do that. But it does matter that people have that branding, that name recognition, and the credibility that comes from having a website. The same with a Facebook page and things like that. Just having some kind of an online presence is going to make a difference as to whether or not people think you are legitimate and whether or not they can trust you. And reputation is everything. So whether you're online or in person, we suggest that you start with a website. So now, next is going to be ways to reach out to your clients. And this is just myriad different directions that you can go. The obvious one is just start by talking to your friends, talking to your family, and seeing if any of them need help. Now, those can be a little bit more tricky because of the personal relationships, but that's really the first level that most people go to. And then asking for referrals, particularly from friends and family. And this can be really good if you have a nice Facebook presence or any kind of a social media presence or any kind of an email list that you can get the word out and ask for referrals. You can even offer some kind of benefit for sending a referral if you want. Now, advertising I still think is very valuable. That can be something as simple as putting a name on the outside of your office, or it can be running advertisements in the local newspaper or radio stations or whatever is still being used in your community. And then there's online advertisements as well. That could include, your Facebook ads, your Google AdWords, or whatever. So that's one option. Talks at local organizations and support groups can be really great ways to get the publicity out, to get your name out there, maybe join Toastmasters or find out if there are support groups at the local hospital. For example, I know in my local hospital, there was a fibromyalgia support group. So we went in there, we talked to the fibromyalgia support group, and then from that, I was able to get many clients, and several of them became long-term clients who saw me for, a long time. So that one talk turned into, in reality, thousands and thousands of dollars in my pocket. So if you can find those kinds of support groups or those kinds of places, you can find them in person or online, that can be a way to just let people know that you're out there. Another thing that we will talk about as we go through this course is publicity. So something like writing a simple press release that goes out to your local newspaper. I know this is very old school, but if your community still has a newspaper and they do a profile on you, the people who do read it are going to come to see you. Or some of them are, or at least your name is going to be getting out into the community. Again, it depends on the size of your community. It depends on where you are in the world. But how are people reaching the people in your community now? You could put up a billboard for that matter and have people come to find you. The key is just letting people know that you are there and that you can help and what you do. So next, let's talk about taking clients online. So there's a lot of benefits to working online. And as someone who does it myself, I can tell you that it is glorious. So first of all, for me, the main benefit is that I can work from anywhere. So as many of you know, I'm living in Panama now. When I first started taking online clients, I was living in West Virginia. I took a trip around the world, and I was able to live in 12 different countries and still be able to see my clients. And it made no difference where my location was. And that also expanded me out. So I could be, for instance, when I was in Greece, I could find clients in Greece when I was there and then take those clients with me wherever I went. And the same with, any other country. So you build up your clientele that way, and you have the freedom to live a really broad life. And for me, that's the key. The really nice thing too is no location expenses. I don't have to rent an office wherever I go. And when I had my office, it was costing me $1,000 a month. So I had to do a number of sessions just to pay for my location. Now that's money that goes directly into my coffers. So that really is a nice savings on of overhead. I don't have the travel time of getting back and forth to see a client or rushing to the office only to find out that the client doesn't show up. So it saves me a lot of time. Like I said, it offers me a global audience. And so that's really wonderful, because if I have someone in another location far away from me, when I was seeing people in person, it just simply was not possible to have that person come see me. Now, anybody in the world who wants to have a session from me, assuming I'm taking clients, can get to me. And that really broadens the opportunity immensely. So for people who are very ambitious, or people who want to make a lot of money with EFT, the online option is really the way to go, because you can reach a really broad audience in a way that you can't reach them if you're seeing clients one-on-one in a local environment. So here you also have to set up your business. For many people, the sole proprietor thing is easy. And now here is where your marketing becomes much more important, because you do now need an online location, and that generally is your website, your Facebook page. Some presence becomes critical now, and the better you are at it, the more credibility you're going to have, and the more people are going to come to you. So now, this requires an entrepreneurial mindset, the same as the last one, but now it also requires either very strong technology skills or the capacity to hire that out. So I started out by doing all of it myself. I now hire most of it out. And so that is a critical piece of this. Again, these are the sorts of things that we're going to examine as we go through the entrepreneurship program, where we will be teaching you these different skill sets. And then you will have to be setting up an online payment option, which, is not that big of a deal if you live in a country that has PayPal. Many countries do not. I know here in Panama, they cannot, because it's a country on the blacklist because of the Panama Papers. People here cannot set up a PayPal account. It's very constricting for people here. But if you're in the US, if you're in Australia, if you're in Canada, if you're in New Zealand, this is a very simple thing to do. Others might need to go to their local bank to work out some kind of an arrangement to take payments online, or find some alternative in your community. So again, the online digital world has unlimited potential. What you do is you start by setting up your website, then you drive people to your website. This comes from some sort of external force. I use Google AdWords, Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising. You might do it through publicity, by showing up on somebody's blog or SEO. There's all kinds of ways to drive people to your website. Once you get them to your website, of course, you want to give them some incentive to do something on your website so that you can get that person to participate with you. Then you turn that person into a relationship, and turn that relationship into a client. Again, these are things we are going to talk about as we go through the program. So it becomes critical to set up your online presence, again, in terms of your relationship building, in terms of your credibility. There's so many things out there that can help you to do that. So the goal here today is not to teach you how to do all these things. It's just not more, it's more than you want to learn in the few minutes that we're talking about this. The goal here is to get you deciding what kind of program you want to have, what kind of business you want to have, in terms of whether you're going to see clients in line, or whether you're going to in person, or whether you're going to see clients online. And this is just a first layer of decision making that you need to do. Now, there's one other thing about the online presence that I think is really cool, and that it doesn't have to be just taking live clients. You can also go on to set up digital products. And this is where a lot of people, and this comes to some degree after you have a highly developed technology skill set, and also after you have a highly developed product that comes from becoming a specialist in your area. So oftentimes I see people putting on online products that are just basically crap because they're not a specialist in their area or their expertise in that area yet, and they just put together ideas. But as you develop that expertise and you take it and you can package it into online products. So for example, you might want to have a course on, so I had a course many years ago. It was an experimental program called the Perfect Weight Project. So I did that project live, but if I wanted to, I could package that program now into the Perfect Weight Project and make it a passive income generating product. So it could consist, for example, of some tapping stuff with scripts that people would tap along with. It might have some, as we did before, some hypnosis for weight loss, and it might have, a food tracker, and it might have some kind of, whatever. So those pieces can then get put together and bundled into an online digital product. And when that happens, now you're starting to generate passive income, or you can have an interactive, almost passive income product, or you can even just use that as a lead generator to get people into the pipeline of becoming a client. So these are just, I hope this wasn't all overwhelming for you, all this information, and that you have given the information that you need to ask the simple question of what kind of question is best, or what kind of business is best for you. So when you have that overarching decision made, then you can start drilling it down into figuring out what the pieces are that go underneath of that in order to make your business successful. So I hope this is helpful, guys. If you have any questions, you can always welcome to reach out to me. I'm always here for you. I just want you to be successful. And I guess that's about it. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.